Money doesn't just come from one place. It drips, trickles, flows, and floods into our lives in different ways. Welcome to Drip, Trickle, Flow, Flood, a podcast that explores the power of multiple income streams. We've got merch. That's right. Drip, Trickle, Flow, Flood t-shirts are officially here, and they're as comfy as they are conversation starting. Grab yours at the link in our show notes. Hey, Tony, how you doing today?
Good. How are you, Melissa?
Oh, I'm pretty good. Busy week. How about you?
Yeah. I've had definitely stuff going on, but track season is over, so my
Oh,
afternoons have freed up a little bit, so that's cool. So got some writing projects to finish up. I've got a rental house to rent and some things going on, but yeah, feeling a little less busy actually this week, which is kind of
okay. That's good. Can work on all your different drips, trickles, flows, and floods this week.
yeah. So that's fun. Anything new and exciting in your world?
You know, I had a good conversation yesterday with one of the producers I work with. I can't say too much, unfortunately. This industry is shrouded in secrecy until things are officially announced. But what I can say is I've been for the last like 2 years, although it started probably 6 years ago, I've been working on a major feature film. And we got some really great news around distribution that I learned yesterday, merchandising that I learned yesterday. That was very exciting, and some potential sequel projects. So I'm excited about that.
Well, that's super cool and a great segue because today, a couple episodes we were talking about real estate failures, and Melissa kind of grilled me a little bit, and then we just had Madison on the show, and she was talking about all her drips, trickles, flows, and floods, and funding her dream of making shows and movies. So today we're going to dig in a little deeper into that world. And I'm going to ask Melissa questions about how the heck do you do that? You know, you're coming out with a feature film, you know, you've got this project coming out, but just being a script writer in general, being in that film world, how does that happen? So let's go way back, right?
Mhm.
How does someone even say, all right, I'm going to be a script writer? How do you get your first opportunity to get paid for a script, whether that's on spec or whether that's, you know, working for a studio, or maybe there's other ways that I don't even know about.
Mhm. I mean, that's probably going to be different for everybody. It's a tough question because it's not one thing, right? I can kind of take you all the way back and try to give you the most abridged version. Um, I didn't start even considering this path until I was in my 30s, and I sort of did it on a whim. Just had an idea for a script and was like, let me write it. And I bought this book called it was called the 10-minute screenwriter. Why am I blanking on this? Anyway, I'll link it in the show notes. And the premise of the book is like you'll learn to write a script in 10 minutes per day. So I sat in an Airbnb. I think I stayed in Los Angeles for a month at that point. We didn't live there yet. And I was in an Airbnb for a month, and I sat with that book and I wrote I wrote my first script. And then I contacted the author of the book and I was like, I have this script. I don't know if it's any good. And she said, well, I do script consultations, which at the time I didn't even know was a thing. That's how green I was. And I hired her to read the script. Of course, it was terrible. I mean, it was the most awful thing. And I had no idea what I was doing. But she was like, I'm seeing like enough raw talent in this that I really think you should pursue this. Like, of course, we need to gut 90% of it, but there's like something here. And I didn't, I knew that she wasn't like BSing me. So I scrapped that. I kept rewriting that script for like 6 months or so. And then I started on my second script, which my second script I went on to sell, which was pretty cool. That was not my first paid project though.
Okay, so
So
Well,
So I'll
let's
take you through a couple. Let me just take you through this really quick.
okay.
I'll fast forward. So basically I spent about 2 years with my mentor learning how to write scripts before I tried to take anything out to anyone because I'm like, what would I take out? Everything I'm writing is garbage. I knew it was garbage. So I spent about 2 years trying to perfect a couple of what we call samples or specs, which just means scripts that you write for free in the hopes that you can use them to get a job or maybe sell the script itself. So once I had, I think I had two samples in that I was proud of in the 2 years that we worked together. And at that point, I was working in marketing, I still work in marketing, and I just literally reached out to every single person I knew, and I said, "Hey, I'm looking to, get into screenwriting. I am not looking to ask for favors. I do not wanna ask anybody to read my script or give me a job. All I wanna do is I wanna meet people and get to know their stories and, like, learn about their journey and what they're excited about." So through that, I got lots of connections, tons of connections, and I probably spent the next year going on coffee dates with people in this all over LA. At this time, we were like not quite moved there, but I was spending a lot of time there. And I met so many people, and a lot of those people did offer to read something, but that was not like my intention. Again, I was like, I'm not asking for a favor from a stranger. I genuinely just wanted to learn. I was looking at it as like think of it like going to college, right? I'm going to deep dive into this industry. I just want to learn as much as possible, soak up all the knowledge. And so through that, yes, some people did offer to read. Um, those things were just, I was very grateful. Sometimes they gave notes, sometimes I never heard anything back. It was all good. I was happy for all of it. And then eventually I happened to meet someone who was transitioning from screenwriting to producing, and she had way too much work on her plate. And she was hoping to find a writer that she could help mentor to take over some of the writing while she could move into producing. And also, she wanted to direct too. So, producing and directing. So, when we met, we hit it off. She read my scripts and she was like, "Yeah, you're the one I want to work with." She saw something in my writing and knew I was, and I guess after we had gotten along so well, and that's what happened. And that led to my very first job, which was writing a thriller movie that aired domestically and internationally. And I still get residuals on today. Because the person that was in it is in some Marvel movie, so I guess the actress that was in it, so it still has legs.
That's awesome. So you get
Yeah.
a little bit of IP
Yeah.
drip or trickle or flow or whatever
Mhm.
level that's at. That's cool. So when you were in that Airbnb, is that something that like you said, I'm gonna book this Airbnb and just go do some deep work, or you guys just were exploring moving to LA in an Airbnb and you started writing?
Yeah, no, we were not exploring moving to LA yet. I needed to go to LA to speak at a conference for the marketing end of my business. And so knowing that I needed to go there anyway, I was like, huh, this could be an opportunity. I went by myself. Gary didn't come with me. He had other stuff going on. So my husband stayed. I just went by myself and I just thought this could be an opportunity for like deep incubation and work since I have to be here for like my other work anyway. And yeah, I just treated it sort of like a writing retreat, I guess.
That's
And
cool. I've
yeah,
just
it's
been
good.
listening to the book called Deep Work, and that somebody recommended. So that's cool that you. I mean, really, it's cool that you put in so much effort to pursue this passion, even though you weren't making money off of it. I mean, this was all extra work, right? You had your marketing work going on. That's what was paying the bills.
Yeah. I didn't make money till probably about 4, maybe like 4 years in. Yeah. Yeah.
That
Three,
that's
4 years in.
that's a long time. So I want to keep going down into the script writing piece, but talk a little bit about that. Like the people seem willing to pay money to go to college and say, "All right, I'm studying for 4 years or 3 years." Very few people are willing to say, "I'm gonna just do this work or study this thing or even work for free or work for, way below what they could earn doing something because they want to learn and get better and develop this skill." where did you get the insight or that drive to say, all right, I'm gonna pursue this, and I don't care if I'm not making any money. I think that this is something that I want to do in my life, and I'm just gonna go for it.
I mean, I think maybe just because 'cause I'm Gen X who grew up with not much money. I don't know. I mean, that's how I built my first business, right? Like, I self-funded. I came from not much. It was, and I just did it. And it took a while. It wasn't, like, successful immediately. And then once that at that point, I was probably about, maybe 8 years in, 9 years in, something like that to that business, and, it was doing very well. So to me, it just was like this nice flow. Everything was going well, but I still had, like, open pockets of time that I could do something else with, and so it was something I was interested in, and so I literally took the same approach that I took to building my first business, building this second flow, we'll call it that, because it is all one business, so I can't call it a second business, but, so building this next flow, that's what I did. I just took the same approach, but I think I was able to maybe be a little more successful in it because I had taken so many bumps with my my first business and learned so many lessons that when I entered this, I knew how to network, right? I knew how to write because I was already writing for clients all of the time. It was a different type of writing, but of course, but writing is writing, storytelling is storytelling, right? So I'm still flexing those muscles. And then just general business sense, I think is so important, we've talked about this in many episodes where, unfortunately, like a lot of creatives are not taught business sense. We're taught, everything about what to put on the page and not, or in the film or in the series, but we're not taught like how to run a business and how to advocate and negotiate for ourselves. And I'm a bit the opposite, where I kind of put that first before the creative piece, or at least I make it equal. And I think that's how I've been able to be successful in this and also be successful for so long because this is definitely not an industry that's like once you get a job, you keep getting jobs. Not at all. A lot of times it's you get a job and you don't have another one for 7 years. So you have
Well,
to use business sense.
so you create, you build the skills, and it sounds like that was, uh, it's hard to believe that what you wrote was crap, but I guess I'm gonna believe you. And so we're going to, yeah, so we take that piece and you've developed these skills, you've got this business acumen that you've been developing. So what's next? Now you've got to go like find jobs. You sold one script. Do you say, okay, all I'm going to do is I'm going to write specs and I'm going to sell scripts for the rest of my life? I mean, I know that's not true because you've talked about writing for studios in the podcast, but so what does that look like? How do you find that other script writing work?
Yeah, so what I ended up doing was the minute that I got that first opportunity that I was paid money for, because in the entertainment industry, that's a big deal. It sounds silly because in other industries, like you work and you get paid. In the entertainment industry, there are a lot of people who make things and work really hard and create and don't make any money off of that work for a very long time and sometimes never. So if you have something that what they would call it has been produced, right? Which means like you've earned money on it and it's out there, it's been produced and it's distributed, right? So that means it's airing somewhere. So in my case, it was a movie that was airing on a popular domestic network and airing internationally on popular networks internationally. So that is a big deal in the industry. As soon as you have that, then people pay attention. They're not gonna come to me. They don't do that. That's not how it works. I have to go to them. So as soon as I got that opportunity, I went and reached out to everybody. Reached out to producers, I reached out to agents, I reached out to managers. I pretty quickly got a manager, so got represented, which means, that's somebody that will help you develop projects and help introduce you and hopefully help you sell things. And then they take a 10% cut. That's how your manager would work in the entertainment or a literary manager would work. Um, I did that. we had, a bit of success together. Ultimately, I found that I just had more success on my own. Like, I was actually making more connections on my own than my manager was able to make for me, which is also can be common sometimes. So we eventually parted ways. But it was still helpful to have for that period of time. And then, like I said, I was able to just make those connections because I had the little golden ticket, right? I had something that was made and was airing and it was also doing well. They care a little less about that. But just the fact that I had gotten something made and I've been paid for it, that means that you have a little golden egg and you're considered a baby writer, which is a very strange term, but that's what they call you. And you're in demand. So I just really looked at it as my own little PR campaign. I have to get myself in front of as many people as possible, and try to work. And so through that, I was able to I booked a second deal pretty quickly, and, that one was kinda dicey. It was fine, but it was not my favorite project, but, good learning experience, and then after that is when I really got a much bigger play in the industry, which is when, I was brought in to Lifetime Network to do their first trilogy of movies, which is, 3 movies, 1 story told over 3 movies. First time they had ever done it, they were gonna put a lot of marketing budget behind it. It was a big to-do for them, and I was the writer for that. So it was pretty cool, and then that really solidified everything moving forward because then it was a matter of not me constantly, going out, going out. It was now here's, 5 movies. We wanna just give you a 5-movie deal. And we don't even know what those movies are yet, but here's the deal, here's the contract, and then we'll figure all the rest of the stuff later. So that's how it went.
So are they coming to you and saying, "We want you to write this idea," or are you saying they say you have a 5-movie deal and you say, and then you come up with an outline or a pitch of it and you say, "Okay, I have this idea," and they say, "Yeah, that sounds good. Let's make that."
Yeah, it can work different ways. In my case, I've done it 3 different ways. So the most common way is that it's just an open slot for a film that's mine, and I come up with the concept, and we all agree, and then we go off and do all the steps and get that made. Um, it could also be that they come with an idea where it's something ripped from the headlines or inspired by the headlines. Or it was a project that they had many years ago that fell apart, but it was their IP. It wasn't like another writer's IP. And they want, a new writer to take a stab at that. I've definitely gotten many of those jobs over the years. Another way that I work is I rescue projects. So that means there was another writer on it or several other writers on it, at some period of time, and they were not able to get it over the finish line to be actually produced. So they'll bring me in. And usually when they bring me in, the idea is, oh, we just need you, you to do a draft and edit this up. But it always ends up being that I have to scrap the entire thing and start over from scratch to get it to a place where it can be produced. So, but that's okay because as long as I negotiate for that, it's not a big deal. I'm happy to do that. So, the big studio movie that I'm doing that I was just mentioning earlier in this episode was that. It was a project that is not my original IP. It's, owned by the studio. There was a totally different writer on it. They weren't able to get it over the finish line. By the way, that doesn't mean that writer wasn't good. I want to just put that out there because I know probably people are listening that that's happened to. It's very common when you write, this can happen, that, things fall apart and maybe just your vision and their vision is different. So, for whatever reason, they weren't able to get that made, and so they came to me, and then that was what I had to do. I had to gut the project and start all over and reimagine the world and the theme and the characters and everything, and so now here we are, and
I
it's
like
being
that.
made.
That's awesome. Kinda like the Drip Trickle Flow Flood book that I sent over the half of a first draft to, and you say, "Oh, this is a great idea. Here's a fresh outline. Let's roll with this."
Yeah, I mean, it's
I
a
mean
weird thing with, I mean, books are books, but,
I mean, I'm joking,
no, but
but
it's true. Because with scripts, it's like it's one thing to just write a script because you're, like, pouring your creative energy and heart into it, and it's another thing to write a script for a buyer. It really is, and it's not easy. Really only half of your job is writing. The other half is being a good negotiator. That's really what it is, because they have ideas, they know what they wanna do, they know what their audience likes, they know what they wanna see, they know what beats they wanna hit, and so but then you have to come in and say, "Well, maybe that doesn't serve the story, as well as it should," and then you're arguing with them, but in a respectful way most of the time. So you are sort of half lawyer, half writer. That's the job.
Let's talk a little bit about skill development here. So you were doing your marketing business. You learned business there. You learned some writing skills there, or you practice your writing skills there. You then pour yourself into learning to become a script writer. Now you're dealing with, I mean, somehow you just turned into an attorney and you're analyzing contracts. So if somebody if somebody wants to develop these types of skills, like I was thinking we go into this episode and people are gonna be like, oh, okay, well that all makes sense. I think I probably could do these steps and become a scriptwriter. Now it's like, holy cow, this is a daunting task. And if you're not as smart as Melissa, maybe you should go get a job
It's
somewhere
not
else.
smart.
So let's give like some steps of like where can people find access to opportunities to develop these skills?
Mm. Well, that's a good question because honestly, there are not a lot of places. Um, I mean, I've yet to find any place that would maybe give you all of that. By the way, I don't do anything with contracts. I have a lawyer for that piece, so that part I don't do. Negotiating, I do though. I mean, for sure, I will
Well, okay, but
negotiate, but
let's not necessarily one spot, but you're building these you're building these skill sets from different places. You're like drip trickle flowing, flooding your way into these skills, right?
Mhm.
Not from a financial standpoint, but like you're building these skills. What do people need to do? What do individuals need to do to go find those skills? It doesn't sound like it's one thing that you can just go to college for, or you can go to, buy script writing for dummies or, whatever
Mhm.
to actually have all the skills you need.
Yeah, I mean, so for script so if you're talking about, like, the writing half, I guess we'll split it into 2 halves, like, the writing half and the business half. So, for the writing half, I would say the best way to do it is, well, number 1, read a lot of scripts, like, actually read them, watch the episode while you're reading it, start to break it down, be like, "Okay, here's where the commercial break was," if it has commercials. Start to note those things because 'cause they're called act breaks, so that means there has to be some sort of cliffhanger that's getting you to come back after that. But even something without commercials will have those as well, right? They'll have those because it has to keep the pacing going throughout the piece of media, right? To keep you watching, keep you entertained. So read, 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 read. Um, obviously write, but I would say try to write, like pick one genre to start. That doesn't mean you can't go to other genres. I certainly do, but it can be easier just to like pick one genre just to like start for practice. And then, excuse me, and then work. I would recommend the route that I went, which is working with a consultant, somebody that's reputable. I can link my mentor in the show notes. Happy to do that, and some other reputable folks as well. But work with a consultant one on one. Write, have them review, give you critical feedback. That is a big piece of this is like being able to take notes and critical feedback, not taking it personally, knowing how to incorporate it, knowing how to advocate for what you don't want to change. All of those things are like incredible skills. And you really can't do that without that one on one interaction because that's going to mirror when you're working with a development executive at a studio, right? or a network. It's going to mirror that same conversation. So you want to like get in the habit of, okay, got these notes. Yep. Here, this looks great. This looks great. You could take that in. There's no emotions involved. That's really key. That takes out a lot of writers, by the way. Like lots of folks have trouble taking feedback. So then they leave the industry or it just ends up being like not a happy place for them. So if you can exercise that muscle early on, that's the way to go. So that's a lot of the writing side. It's just practice, 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 work with reputable people, get that, just keep emotions out of it, and just write and practice. On the business side, that can be a trickier side to do because at least I'm not aware of really any place you could go to like learn that. Like there's not a school, I've seen some like workshops and things on networking. Um, again, like those sometimes are good, but they're very specific to maybe like you have to live in LA or maybe one specific path where a lot of times people will say the only way to make it is like to network with other peers and then everybody gives each other jobs. And I just always hated that because I'm like, I just feel like that's just then it makes every relationship transactional. So that was not a path that I wanted to take, but it works for other people. But if you don't want to take that path, then there's really not much out there for you. So I would say for that end, you need to make money while you are pursuing this path. And so, like we said in a previous episode, look for adjacencies, right? Like where can you work? Or what business can you start? Or can you be a 1099 contractor or freelance where you can acquire some of these skills? And I'd say probably one of the best places to do that is just leverage your storytelling skills for corporate clients because you're pretty much going to get the same thing. So if you're writing for Microsoft, for example, like which is something that I've done. If you're writing a speech for a Microsoft exec, you're going to get the same feedback that you would at a studio. They're going to come back with critical feedback, right? They want you to change things. It's negotiation. You're learning. Again, when you're like even getting that contract, you're negotiating your rates. So there's all those things that you can learn on that side that then you can bring into your screenwriting career so that you're not taken advantage of.
So, okay. Well, as expected, you've kind of reined this in a little bit to make it seem possible. And even though it's a daunting task and there's so many pieces to it, the fact that there isn't a clear path to it, to me is almost better, right? Like if you want to go be a surgeon, well, there's a path and you are competing with literally every single person that wants to be a surgeon. And I don't know that much about becoming a surgeon, but I think a lot of it is like you got to be really good at taking tests, right? Like you
Probably.
got to get good grades and you got to really, you got to, so that's how you're going to get into the good schools and that's how you're going to, right? Where this, it's like being creative and you get to express yourself in different ways. And it's all about effort. If you want to put in that time to read and study the scripts and develop those skills and then go find other jobs or other things to read or study where you can develop, the more business networking side of the skill set. So I think that's cool and inspiring, right? That if someone wants to go do this, obviously you probably need some natural talent or whatever, but it also sounds like one of those areas where effort, determination, perseverance, if you have those things, it may be a long road, but that you can get there if you can kind of outwork, outlast, and do those pieces where other people may punt part of the way through because they're not getting the results they want or they don't like the feedback they want whatever reason. There's probably you've had thousands of reasons to not do this, but your reasons to
Sure.
do it have outweighed it.
Plenty of no's.
Yeah.
Plenty of rejections. Anytime big fan of rejection. Anytime you can flex that muscle too, like where you're getting a lot of no's and a lot of passes is good because it will just make that roll off your shoulder. And yeah, this is an industry where I think every creative industry is like that, where there's not one path in, right? Everybody sort of has their own unique story. And I really think persistence wins. Persistence wins. If you can just keep rolling and, like I said, really keep those emotions out of it. I'm not saying to be emotionless, but just look at it as a business. These people don't want to partner with me. They're not interested in my project. That, like, okay, and you just keep going. Or you had a bad experience on a project. That's not going to color every future project. Like, it's just one experience. The more you can just roll and just keep on going, which is business, any business that you have, those things are going to happen. I think sometimes, though, in creative fields, it can feel more like a gut punch. And I don't know why that is. But I see it a lot more in those fields where folks will take it a lot harder, or take it more personal. And I think, is, the more you can work on taking that out of it, the easier things will be for you.
Melissa, this has been awesome, and I'm assuming that our audience is gonna be thrilled to have an episode where you talk the lion's share of it instead of me. So we I think this is so cool, and it's a world that, it's funny, people I feel like are almost even more closely connected to this world now than they ever have been, just because you're so connected to like all the streaming platforms and it's all coming into your house and there's podcasts about it.
Mhm.
But even with that, it's still like this giant mystery of how does someone come up with this idea and have it come to life, and what's the behind the scenes look like? And so I think that's really cool for you to shed a light on that, and that you've persevered and been so successful at it. And it's going to be awesome the day you can tell us what movie we're all gonna go see. All the drip trickle flow flood listeners are gonna go see the movie.
That would be great. I will make sure everybody knows. Don't worry. Well, this was fun. Hopefully everybody got something out of it. Like I said, just I think a key thing here, I try to keep my advice as broad as possible because of the fact that there's no one way in. So I don't want anyone to feel like what my path was has to be everybody's path, because that's just not the case. There are all sorts of weird, odd ways that people break in. Um, but I would say, as a final closing note, like, try to pick one thing, like one way to start, right? Like, for me, that was just like I said, I chose to work with a private mentor and really go deep into learning the craft. And then I just treated the next phase as like a connection project where I'm going to make connections with people, not transactionally, not with a goal that these people are going to give me a job, right? Or do something specific for me. Just, I want to immerse myself and learn about this industry. So I'm just naturally going to make connections and meet people. And that was my path that I chose to do, right? But that's not for everybody. Not everybody likes that and they want to do different things. But I would say just try to pick one. And just be mindful of where you're getting your advice as well. Like, oh, and this goes for every industry, not just screenwriting. It's like always best often to get the advice or learn from people who have accomplished what you want, right? So like, if you want a movie that comes out in theaters, like, you probably want to then learn from somebody who's had a movie that, that comes out in theaters and has been involved in that in some way, whether it was they were the financier or the producer or the writer or the director, right? So they have some connection to that, some serious connection to that. I think that's always the best way to go, because there's lots of information. As you said, Tony, there are lots of podcasts and lots of things you can listen to, ours included. So I'll put myself in there too, right? Like, it's, if what I'm saying doesn't speak to you, that's okay. Like, pursue a different way. But just be mindful of what you're taking in, because that can also trip folks up for a long time if you are following a path that is not right, because that person that's telling you to follow that path has never done it. Or, maybe it's just a path that doesn't align with you and you just don't want to go in that direction.
Very good stuff. Our listeners are very lucky that you're half of this podcast.
Ditto, because nobody wants to learn real estate and investing from me. It would be horrible. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review. We really appreciate it. It helps others to find our podcast too. And with that said, we will see you next time on Drip Trickle Flow Flood. Thanks, everyone.